And now we have Professor Serena Giusti. Correct me if I pronounce it right.
No. That's fine. Thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation and for this interesting already debate. I will try to focus a bit on the European Union and European space that has been already a bit criticized. And I'm starting from the metaphor of the common European house that you have used and that was used by Gorbachev. This is a very conservative metaphor in the sense that Gorbachev thought that there could be a way of cooperating with Europe, but with still the survival of the Soviet Union. But then we know that this was not possible because Soviet Union collapsed, and therefore the European Union start to cooperate with Russia and with former Soviet Republic. This cooperation was not easy because Russia wanted to have a privileged role in dealing with Brussels. Russia did not want to be one of the post-Soviet Republic dealing with Brussels. And Brussels tried to find way to recognize in a certain way the special role or the different role of Russia in comparison to the other post-Soviet republic. And there was a first agreement between the European Union and Russia that was the Partnership of Cooperation Agreement. I'm talking about this because the whole idea coming out today seems that there has been always a great divide between Russia and the European Union, but instead I think there were some attempts. You might think that they were naive attempts on the side of the European Union, but nevertheless, even with this partnership cooperation agreement, there was a cooperation in economy, in security, in culture and education. And then there was another attempt to find, to try to build up between the European Union and Russia some spaces of cooperation. And plus, there was some regional forms of cooperation that I still believe that could be quite useful in the future to deal with Russia once the war in a way, in some way will be finished or will be stagnating. There was, for instance, the northern dimension of cooperation in which the European Union plus Norway, Iceland and Russia were involved, and also the Black Sea cooperation with, again, the European Union, but with Russia and also other countries like Moldova, Turkey, Ukraine, and Georgia. So I think this platform were quite useful. The contrast between the European Union and Russia started when the European Union launched this policy, the European Neighbor Policy in 2004. So the same year there was the Eastern enlargement. And Russia was invited to take part in this partnership that included Central and Eastern European country not entered in the European Union, Eastern country, Caucasus country, and also Northern African country. And Russia refused to be part of this partnership, as I said, because Russia wanted to have an equal partnership with the European Union. The same Russia had at a certain point with NATO, because I think we cannot forget the agreement between NATO and Russia in 2002, the so-called Pratica di Mare agreement, in which let's say, Russia started a partnership with NATO. Then we know that it did not work, but nevertheless, I would say that was an important sign of cooperation. Russia refused to be part also of, obviously, of the Eastern Partnership. This Eastern Partnership is the strengthening of the Eastern dimension within the European neighborhood policy, and it was devoted to Central and Eastern European country. And within this policy, Ukraine was offered an association agreement, and we know that since then we had the Maidan protest, and then the change of a government in Ukraine, and the annexation of Crimea by Russia. Before the crisis with Crimea, there was another, in my view, very important experiment done by the European Union and Russia that is not very well known, but in 2011, the EU and Russia established a partnership for modernization. At that point, seems that Russia was interest probably was just a facade attitude, but was interest in carrying out a modernization of the country. Modernization was intended in a very minimal way, in the sense that it was intended as an economic modernization, and especially in the capacity of the country of possibly attracting foreign investment. This platform that was created by the European Union and Russia, as I said, in my view, was very interesting because the European Commission was a sort of facilitator of relation among formal and informal actors. That means that states of the European Union and Russia, international organization, the private sector, for instance, enterprises association, sectoral association, research institutes, civil society, but also university were involved or should have been involved in this platform of modernization. And also the means were not so high politically conceived, but were more intended as a sharing best practice, trying to organize a common conference, a common trip. Was an attempt also to make society and professional to know each other. Unfortunately, this platform has been largely unused. Probably this also a fault of the Europeans that could have better exploited this platform and this apparent opening by Russia as well. And the other peculiar thing of this platform is that the European Union renounced to have this paternalistic role vis-à-vis Russia, but was prepared really to help and to share experience. So it was a sort of pragmatic platform. I was mentioning this because this kind of platform, it could be something that we could reconsider for rebuild in some way a relation with Russia. I know that is very difficult right now because we are in the middle of a war. Nevertheless, we also have to make an effort to consider that Putin is not Russia, that Putin is not representing all the Russians, and then there will be a post-war Russia. So I think we have to start to think how can we deal also with Russian civil society. It has already been stressed that there is some diaspora all diaspora, but there is also a new flow of Russian going abroad since the start of the war. And we had an important flow since September 2022 for the partial mobilization of military reservists. And a high number of Russians have been leaving the country to go, for instance, to Kazakhstan, to a neighbor country. And so we might start thinking about how to help this Russian, or should we do something with this Russian? They might be relocated in Georgia, Azerbaijan, and Armenia. Is something that the West at this point can do for dealing with this Russian. At the same time, Russian is also trying to offer easy passport to people in a country like Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and Kyrgyzstan, to convince them to fight with the Russian army. So these countries are opposing that their own people are going to Russia. So there is a sort of a possibility of flow of people. Then also, for instance, what the European Union can do with the civil society. This is a question that the Union has, for instance, already tackled with the Belarusians. So there are specific program with civil society, and also the European Union tried in, I would say, very informal way, not always open way, to support Belarusian civil society through other institutions as European Endowment for Democracy, for instance, because it's not easy for the European Union to finance people resisting to the regime. So there is any initiative in this sense. I was responsible in my university for an Erasmus program with the High School of Economics in Moscow. And it happened to me to go there for teaching. I must say, no one was controlling me. I could say anything I wanted. And I felt quite a sort of freedom in university. I was organizing some exchange for making students coming to Pisa, but unfortunately with the war, everything was blocked, so they could not come. And my question is this the right policy to ostracize young researcher, for instance? Is the right thing to do, or we should try to find a connection with civil society? And also, I think another effort to think about reintegrating Russia is to do it in a wider space rather than just to see European space. In a wider space, I mean that is a space where we can consider Northern Africa, Middle East, even China. So I think we should try. It's very difficult right now with the war, I understand that, but to rethink the place of Russia, avoiding all division and trying to do it more creatively, in the sense of thinking a sort of trans-European space, right, to avoid this division. I mentioned what has been criticized anyway at the beginning, this effort by French President Macron about this European political community. I know that it seems very weak. It seems another European effort that will not have any concrete effects. But nevertheless, I think that we could restart to rethink all this relation within this pan-European space through some kind of very specific platform try to find some policies as at the beginning of the European process of integration that can put states together, because it's not just Russia, it's also other post-Soviet republic that could be called to cooperate with the European Union. And in that sense, I want also to mention here the very special case of Armenia. Armenia has, for instance, an association agreement with the European Union that was accepted by Russia, accepted in the sense that it not contrast or it oppose this. So there is also a way for this country not to decide to be on one side or on the other side, but to have relation with both European Union and Russia, but also other countries. So I think the challenge now is to, even if, as I say, the war is still on, to try to think more creatively in a political way, knowing that, first of all, any kind of cooperation would be possible with Russia if something happened within Russia. This is for sure. Obviously, we cannot have a relation with the same Putin regime. But then what we expect from Russia and what we can do without making the mistake of the past, because we cannot export democracy as we used to do it in the past, because we have to recognize that there are some peculiarity, there are some also social construction and economic structure. So it's very difficult to expect a big change without a middle class, for instance, or in the case of Russia, not considering that there are two cities, Moscow and St. Petersburg, but there is a big, huge Russia that is not so much connected with these two towns, and I think 70% of the GDP of Russia is produced, or it used to be produced between Moscow and St. Petersburg. So there are a lot of domestic factors that we have to consider when dealing with Russia and history, not only because Russia probably has to go through this process of recognition of faults of the past, but also Russia has to come to terms with the superpower status that was guaranteed even after the end of the Cold War because of the nuclear arms. So how to deal with Russia that was yes, used to be a superpower and to have a sort of identity related to the role. So I think that the situation is very complex. It's not easy at all, and it needs an effort by, I think, politician, practitioner, but also from academics, people dealing with history, politics, international relations. So I appreciate today this seminar, because I understand that there are people from a very different background and also from different professional activity. So I am here, and obviously I'm ready to answer any question if there is.
Thank you, Dr. Giusti. Thank you very much for your presentation. Any questions?
I'd like to sort of discuss a little bit, if we could, this Macron initiative of the political committee, because I'm quite interested in it as well. I would feel more comfortable about it if I saw in my mind that the EU was dealing with some of the long-standing difficult issues it already has in front of it, particularly in the Balkans and in terms of its relationship with the former Yugoslav states. It's hard for me, to be honest, to see this as nothing more than a way of deflecting from dealing with those issues. And again, the history of of these kinds of initiatives makes it suspect in my mind. But I appreciate your position on this.
If I may, yes, I agree with you. Also because there is a proliferation, if you want, of this platform, because I was already mentioning European neighbor policy, the Eastern Partnership. I think these are efforts of, we can call them symbolic politics, in the sense that, again, there is an effort in a very delicate moment for many countries also close to Russia to have the European Union in a way to side with this country and to show that the Union is there, and that also they need to make them to cooperate among themselves. This is an important role that the Union can actually do. Then I agree. I mean, the European Union is not a state. We are 27, and all these countries have different position in foreign policy, in the way they dealt. You already mentioned that with the pandemic, we had different approach. No, we didn't have a common position on that as well. We have different position on how to deal with the increasing of energy prices. But nevertheless, it's important that we discuss, we make other country in a way to feel in a sort of a house. I mean, I agree. It's all very, very symbolic, but it's better than nothing. And as much as you have an opening channel of dialogue, this is already something important. With the case of former Yugoslavia, I think for some countries there is a concrete perspective of joining the European Union. But I think the membership is not something that we can realistically promise to every country. And in that respect, also the promise from Ukraine, I think it's more symbolic than realistic. It was something that was made to clarify that the European Union would not accept what Russia was doing and was ready to support Ukraine. But I think there is a long way, and probably in political terms, it's not the best way to support Ukraine, to make Ukraine undertake the path of European integration, because that can oblige Ukraine to make some reform which are probably not the best for the country at this moment, especially after the war. But I think the European Union is very good at symbolic politics, less in concrete politics. But it's also related to the very ontological nature of the European Union. It's not a state. So I think it's already a success, with all the weak points, obviously. But the fact that we are still there and we are able to discuss and even to take different positions, I think it's already something good. And also probably I understand your analysis on be very critical on Russia and the political regime, but I think that probably we could have done something more with Russia. I don't know. I don't know if that would have changed the situation. Probably not. But we probably should have tried more with Russia.
Thank you, Dr. Giusti. Anyone else would like to say or ask something?
Yes, actually. Thank you, Professor, of course. The other day, I was reading a few articles, news reports with regards to the energy crisis that's currently ravaging the European Union and to a certain extent the world. I read that that OPEC has recently agreed to, I think, cut production of oil barrels which could have a significant impact on gas prices, especially in the United States, where I'm from, and perhaps even in the EU as well. I also saw that Turkey, President Erdogan recently requested that they hold off payments from towards Gazprom and Russia until about 2024. The reason why these caught my attention is because from a geostrategic standpoint, I've always understood Turkey to be, or what used to be the Ottoman Empire, to be a very significant player potentially, especially for the last 1,000 or so years. What I'm curious about is, as this concerns, Turkey, the Russian energy situation, how do you feel, in your view, this economic crisis that's currently hitting, or economic and energy crisis that's currently hitting Turkey, relative to what's happening with Russia from a geostrategic standpoint, how could that have a role in what could potentially happen in just the general area? Because Turkey essentially sits on the bridge between Europe and the Middle East. And I can't help but wonder what role that could play, especially as the EU gears up for what some may or may not suggest could be a cold, hard winter to come.
Yeah, thank you. Turkey is a member of NATO, so Turkey is playing a role also with the United States. I think probably in the case of Turkey as well, the EU was not able to start accession negotiation when in 2004, when it opened the negotiation with Central and Eastern European country, and for Turkey this was a source of frustration. So another question would be the present situation would have been different if the EU would have been more open to Turkey. It's very difficult to say. And I would say that Turkey is a case in which the European Union is very ambiguous, because on one hand, the European Union is criticizing Turkey for not respecting human rights, for this regression in democracy. It cannot be at the moment considered a democracy, but at the same time, we use Turkey for a sort of we delegate Turkey the question of flow of migrants from, especially from Syria. We gave Turkey a lot of money to deal with that. So there is a contradiction and there is an ambiguity of the European Union. At the same time, Turkey is playing on various geopolitical tables, but I think in the case of the conflict in Ukraine, also Turkey is very afraid of Russia gaining control over the southern part of Ukraine. So I think it's a very for Turkey as well at the moment. It's very difficult to maintain all this relation and to achieve its own goals, also because of the economic crisis as well. So I think it's a very interesting case to investigate, certainly. And as we have seen at the beginning of the war, Turkey has also tried to play a diplomatic role that has not been very successful, but it helped probably to Turkey to rebrand itself as a useful and strategic partner of the West, at the same time maintaining a relation with Russia. So it's really playing on different tables, but with some difficulty at the moment.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Giusti. Well, we're going to move on.